Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. Glad to hear this morning. Got a big show lined up. But first, let's take a look at our weather. Brought to us by Gulf Coast Air Conditioning. Drew Pollard and his hard-working crew up there in Southport. Let's take a look at the water temperature first. I'm reading right here, 66.9. That is really, that's made that dip right there below 68. So that's a really good sign of really Thanksgiving, 2 or 3 weeks around Thanksgiving has always been good surf fishing. So keep that in mind, and that's the reason right there. It really sort of takes that dip a little later. It seemed like than we had anticipated. Now air temperature will be 72 high and 61 low, but the weather we're having the rest of this week is just going to be really nice. Really good forecast, looking good. It's going to be a little chilly in some spots, especially further north you get from off the coast. Our river readings brought to us by Mountain Dew. Enjoy the great outdoors with Mountain Dew. We're looking at the Apalachicola Bluntstown, a 6.7. It's in good shape. And the Choctaw Caryville, 4.7. Both rivers in good shape in the early part of this week, if you get a chance to go. The tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn. We're looking at a little bit, yesterday was all neap tides, today's not much better, but the rest of the week now we're going to start getting some good tides on into the weekend, and then all the way on into next week is going to be some good strong tides. Our marine forecast, south-southeast coming in about 7. Really pretty day to be on the water or out in the woods. Let's take a break, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at some of our pictures that we gather around, and some sent to us, and some I gather off my Facebook page, Chester Randall Jolly up there in northeast Alabama. But you're talking about the whiskers, and for you photographers that are a lot more sophisticated than I am, she talks about the backlight, the light in the background, how that highlights the facial whiskers that you really never notice on a deer's face, and they. Okay, so that I've never noticed that either. So that's what a professional photographer can point out. So I thought that was cool. All right, my buddy Robert David Whitfield, he probably gets more rattlesnakes than of course he lives in. I mean, he works in the woods every day. So good job, Robert David Whitfield from the Whitfield family over there in Weewall. Elliot Melvin sent this of his buddy Moon Phillips. That is a fine one. I know Moon was cold, and I'm not sure where he got that. I want to think Illinois, but I'm not sure. Elizabeth Wingrove down in Weewall. I love the outdoors and my little brown dog. I just love posting pictures of Elizabeth, and I do it on a regular basis because she just loves the outdoor. She and her fiance go out on a regular basis. Listen, the fishing was pretty good. This came off the Panama City fishing page. This is Victor Lopez. Caught some keepers at the west side of Tyndall Bridge. Wade fishing today. The old school bait still work. This is in Callaway, and I got a kick out of looking at his bait. How many times have we used a yellowhead, red tail, or some simple combination with a white body? That's really how the jig fishing started, with that color right there. So it's so neat. And I've always said this, I think the fish get accustomed to seeing one lure, and it sort of changes like fashion. I always thought fish bait was in fashion, whatever it is. Also, the little treble hook on a silver spoon, which depicts a minnow. So good job, Victor Lopez, old school. Matt Weaver also posted this on the Panama City fishing. Braved the cool weather. It was cool this weekend, and put on the waders. It was a slow bite at first, but then turned out on for a solid 4 hours before dying off. Days like today are why I love fishing. And you can see, it's interesting what he said, how it turned. Here it is, a good picture of a nice trout. And again, look at that little bait right there. And again, I want to talk about doing things in style. You just change with the times as far as the fishing tackle. I got a kick out of Hunter Ray over here in South Walton. This is a candid photo of me trying to figure out how many fishing trips it's going to take to pay for one night at Magic Kingdom. It's more than a few. He's Hunter with Florida Boys Adventures over there. Charter fisherman, been doing it, Ray family, been doing it a long time, but I got a kick out of that trying to figure out how to pay for it. Meanwhile, in Panama City, 1 bed, 1 bath, $2,300 a month. And the rent is not quite that bad, but that sort of depicts what the rent has been doing. So anyway, that's some of the pictures. And I also have yesterday I went to made some phone calls and I put together a report this past weekend on dove season opening back up, a dove report, and also a squirrel report. And here's my dove report. The first one, Billy Grantham, I touched base with him to see what was going on in Jackson County, because Jackson County is usually a hot spot of dove shoots, especially this time of year. We're looking at a second wave of dove coming in. And what Billy was talking about, he made a couple of points here. He was talking about, he talked to a group of 12 hunters. This particular dove hunt had 12 hunters. They took 25 birds, a couple of hunters didn't get any. So he said it's pretty slow. And basically the second wave has not come in as far as really cold weather. A little wave came in and skipped on down, but the second wave will be coming in any time now for dove shoots up there in Jackson County. One dove shoot up there around 7720. Talked to one of my friends at church, and he said they had a fair shoot. There wasn't anything to write home about, but it was a fair shoot up in that area. And then the third one, the Big Bend area, Saturday, Gal and I were going up to Granddad's to take some corn. I stopped by the Big Ben's outdoors place right there in Bluntstown, and I always love talking to folks there. And a couple of fellows, it was about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. They were headed down to south of Bluntstown to go on a dove shoot. He said there are birds everywhere. They had it all set up, and they had a big shoot was planned. And he asked me, was I going dove hunting? I said, well, nobody invited me this particular Saturday. So he acted like he would be glad for me to go, but I had a lot of things to do. But anyway, that's 3 reports on a dove shoot. The squirrel report, 2 reports. One was fair, one was great. So I guess it's according to where it was. And the biggest thing about this squirrel hunting on the river on the weekend, especially opening weekend like that, is just special. Not the quantity of squirrels you get, it's the quality of time you spend with your fellow outdoorsmen, young and old. So that's the big thing about this past weekend, camping on the river and doing some squirrel hunting. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. One of the things I really enjoy doing on this show is bringing the glimpses into the past of their heritage and how things were done years ago by the pioneer families, and it's just really interesting to me. And usually the pioneer families were just outdoorsmen, they just went hand in hand because that's how they survived. One of the early things they did after started growing sugar cane around here would be making cane syrup. And I remember as a kid, my dad would take us out on Saturday morning just a couple of times a year. Different families would do it, spread out through Gadsden County and on down into Calhoun County, up in Jackson County. Different families, and all through the Panhandle over this way, would have a sugarcane field, and they would cut the sugarcane, and then they'd put it in a little grinder. It's just a grinder, and a mule would, it'd be like this. A grinder would be here in the center, and then a mule would walk around in a circle, pulling, and would turn that grinder round and round all morning long. And one of the farmers would stick the sugar cane into the grinder, and it would squeeze the juice out, and then they would cook the juice and make cane syrup. And I always thought that was the coolest thing, because one of the things I've always enjoyed doing was just watching that. I remember the old farmers, they'd have some bottles, fresh, they're still warm, and over there on the side had some bottles they'd be selling. And I remember one of the farmers, their dad everybody knew everybody, and we just got a kick out of watching the process. And Dad would say, how much is it a bottle, Mr. Jones, or whoever, I can't remember who it was. It was Fred Smith, Mr. Fred Smith. And he said, well, Mr. Willis, it's 50 cents a bottle or 2 bottles for $1, whichever you want. And when I was young, I couldn't figure that out. So anyway, here's the process. We're gonna start up in here. Here's the process here. The Heather Taylor sent this, a Taylor family up here in Washington County. They're still doing it. The process is different as far as the actual, look here at the bottom. Okay, they put on the left side, they're putting a sugar cane. Okay, the stalks of the sugar cane, put 2 or 3 in at a time. This machine is grinding them up. The juice will be coming out the bottom, and the pulp is on the right. All right, here comes the juice out of this machine. It's cool machinery. I don't know if it was engineered just for sugarcane or some other process, but it works great. And it saves the mule a lot of work. And you don't see the mule doing it, but they grow the sugarcane, and they're making a process here. This is part of the Panhandle heritage, doing things like this. I appreciate the Taylor family still doing this. And you can see the bulk of the stalks over here, which makes good fertilizer. And anyway, so I was going to also show you here's the cooking process right here to show you. Let me see. All right, here, when they cook it up like this, see right here, that big old boiler, get it hot underneath and just cooking it right there. And here it is, when it comes out, there's a bottle of sugar cane syrup. Okay, that's special. It has a unique taste to it. And I remember we'd make it, we'd still get it still warm, and my mom would, next couple mornings, would make my brother and I pancakes, and we just pour it all on there. It was just a special time. So sugar cane syrup, thank you, Taylor family still doing it. I know there are other some families, a couple other families still doing it. And I know they do it at the Pioneer Settlement up there in Bluntstown. So that's cool stuff. And speaking of cool stuff, one of the things I really appreciate is older people doing things outdoors and all. And I ran across this the other day. It just happened, and I was just tickled to do it. You know, I often talk about, there was a period of time, about a 10, 12-year period of time, I was doing some really serious hiking on the Appalachian Trail. And there's a group of us go, just different groups, and we just really enjoyed it. We go for a week, maybe 10 days at a time at the most, and then come back down here and get to work and all. But we always thought about my buddies and I would talk about, let's just hike the whole trail. And so we were doing segments at a time, starting in North Georgia, and it was special. We never did go, what they call a through hiker is one that starts at the beginning and keeps going till it gets to the end. It starts in North Georgia and goes up to Maine, and we've talked about it before. I hadn't talked about it the last couple of years, but we used to talk about it pretty heavy. But I just ran across this because this is special. At 83, Nimblewood Nomad enters the Appalachian Trail Record Book. And this guy right here, I started reading about this guy, and he hiked the whole trail at 83 years old. Folks, that's 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine, like I said. And I just went on. Mr. Eberhardt is an 83-year-old retired eye doctor. And he finished his final at 21,000. But I looked him up. He was from he's from Flag Mountain, Alabama. And of course, knowing when I read something like this, I just want to find out where's Flag Mountain, Alabama. Folks, it's between Montgomery and Birmingham, not too far off the interstate. So anyway, he had a 6-pound pack. The story goes on that he just, look at there. Is that not amazing? There's some spots in there that's really hard to get through. 83 years old. He had 50 miles per hour wind. It's a great story. Here's the guy that he beat this guy's record. The guy on the left had the record until, just right here, I thought this was cool. An incredibly emotional time as I again break down in tears, Mr. Eberhardt wrote on the online journal. It's an emotional kind of thing, and I want to congratulate him. And let's see, I had a picture somewhere of the trail. I just am amazed when, okay, that's a different one. Anyway, we talked about the Appalachian Trail before, and it's just a cool place. But to do something like that is really good, and it just is inspiring to, no matter what age you are, just keep on going and set your goals, and through hiker through the Appalachian Trail is something else. So retired eye doctor, I guess his sight was pretty good at getting through the boulders and all. I got a kick out of watching it. I read the story. It's a really neat story. Maybe you want to look it up and read it. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at our fishing game time today, brought to us by Blue Water Outriggers. We're looking at our time this morning, 8:35 to 10:35. This evening, 8:56 to 10:56. All kind of cool things going on outdoors this time of year in the Florida Panhandle. One of the things, and talking about cool things going on, there's always this, and I've talked about this before, talking about hiking. This is a Florida trail. If you don't have a chance to hike the Appalachian Trail, the Florida Trail actually starts up here over in Pensacola, come through, this area all the way through here, and different ways it goes around Orlando. It's amazing. Isn't it amazing? You can actually go that far around Okeechobee. But anyway, the area up in here off Highway 20 and all, that's some good hiking and all if you get a chance to do it. I haven't done much of Florida Trail, really, and I just, not that I don't want to, I just haven't had time, but I enjoy, if you're talking about taking a walk in the woods, that's a good way to do it. Now, another thing I want to bring up, with Thanksgiving coming up next week, I know everybody's talking about cooking and getting the family together and all, so it's always an exciting time. And Jeff and I were talking, he's got their turkey, and we're going to have our turkey, and we're excited about it. Thanksgiving to me as an outdoorsman, I always think about the squirrel hunts, what we just covered in the first part of the show. I also think about, as I became a teenager and able to go to some lakes and all, I really got into duck hunting. And duck hunting has just always been special to me. I don't do as much of it as I used to, but I know last year we went off West Bay Point and did a good duck hunting show. And it really rekindled my interest in duck hunting. But back then I would study them, and you didn't have a lot of information to study the ducks, but my favorite was a wood duck, walking through the swamps and around Teloja Creek and down around Ocklawatomie. I was walking from squirrel hunting. I'd hear ducks, and I'd sneak up to them. I'd watch them eat acorns and all, and that's how I developed my love of duck hunting. And of course, you get up close enough, you spook them and shoot them as they come off the water. And then I had another teenage friend of mine, I won't call out his name, but he was very good at shooting them as they come in on the roost. And I went with him a time or two, and I Dad wouldn't let me do that anymore, because I honestly didn't know it was illegal to do at the time. And I thought it was exciting, but it's illegal to do that. But that was a long time ago, and I was a young man, didn't know any better. But anyway, I just have this love of hunting. So what I'm getting at, I want to put up I studied the different flyways. I found information on this. This picture, of course, on the right, the Atlantic flyway on the right over here, and this sort of fuzzy in. But what affects us is the Mississippi flyway, and that's the main one. And it starts up here, and you see it's not just one straight line. It comes down basically around the Mississippi River, but it blends into our area right in here, or the Panhandle, and then sometimes we get Atlantic. So anyway, and if you remember the last couple of years, I would go to Ducks Unlimited and go to they have a little map, active map. We actually punch in a little area where someone made a report. I went to it last night, and I usually play it, but there was nothing on it last night in our area from duck hunting. I've got some up in North Alabama will report that they're on the way. They're seeing more numbers, but there's nothing right in this area, which does not mean there are not ducks here, but it's still early for them. But I wanted to mention that to you also. Another thing I want to mention too, let's go back to fishing. The other day I had some folks out fishing by my dock, and I do not mind that one bit. But I wanted to go out there and tell them the water's too shallow right now. Wintertime, you get this north wind, and at the end of my dock, it's about this deep. And I could tell they were not fishing experts, and I wanted to go in there and help them, but I didn't want them to think I was going to try to run them off, because I flat out don't mind. I remember a couple of years ago, my buddy and I were fishing in North Bay, about 3 or 4 docks down from the Bailey Bridge, south of the Bailey Bridge, and it was good fishing. It was early fall fishing, and we got close to the dock, was casting up to it, and this little boy, an 8 or 9-year-old boy, walked out on the dock and started throwing rocks in the water. And I thought to myself, now that's some kind of parenting to teach your kid to run the fisherman off by throwing rocks in the water. But we didn't say anything. We just smiled and waved and moved on. But I certainly don't mind people fishing around my dock, but it's too shallow right now. We've got a north wind, and dock fishing is great at particular times. In the wintertime, you start patterning your fishing for speckled trout. The best thing is to find these channels of the creeks coming out into the bay, find these deeper holes, and Captain Roy and I talked about that for years, find these deeper holes, and he taught me a lot about it, where they just come up, the trout's gonna come up in those deep holes and sort of sit there, and they're not gonna be real aggressive, so you gotta find the holes and sort of put it right in front of their face. And you can use any kind of lures that's gonna sink down. They're not gonna fool with anything top water. The water temperature is slow, and they're not gonna be doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So be aware of that, and I wouldn't waste a lot of time around docks in the wintertime unless you're around a channel or something. So anyway, we got to start wrapping things up. Tomorrow, the FWC will be coming on. We'll have some questions answered from them, a lot of cool stuff coming on, and then they're getting some results from some of the surveys they've done, some of the hearings they've been to on redfish, on Goliath grouper, all kind of good things going on. And also, hopefully, we can get a report on what happened on the fall red snapper as far as how many fish were taken. Got to wrap it up. Thank you all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. We appreciate the viewership. Do something good today for your fellow man, and God bless.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.